At 10:16 in the morning on October 16, 1997, dispatcher Nora Vale answered a call that should not have existed. The emergency center in Mercy Bell, Kansas, recorded every incoming line on compact logging cassettes. The cassette from console 3 is damaged now. There is a low electrical hum under the voices, and every few seconds the pitch bends as if the machine is losing speed. But the time code is clear. So are the first words spoken by the caller.
Mercy Bell Dispatch. This is Nora Vale. School bus 17 is off Bellwether Cut. We have children in the water. Send everyone. Please, Sam, send everyone.
The dispatcher listening to that voice was also Nora Vale. She did not speak for 4 seconds. On the tape, you can hear her breathing. You can hear the plastic chair roll backward. Then she asks the question any trained dispatcher would ask.
Hey, ma'am, what is your location?
At console 3, same as you. Nora, listen to me. Leah was on the bus.
Leah was Nora's 16-year-old daughter.
The call came early again. You still have a day. Do not just change the route. Find out why it happens. And when Eli opens the bellwether box, do not let him cut the blue pear until you hear the tone.
3 notes followed. The first was steady and familiar, like a telephone receiver left off its hook. The second rose above it. The third completed a clean, almost musical interval. Then there was a crash, water, someone shouting a child's name, and the line went dead. The water and shouting did not place the caller at the creek. Console 3's logger mixed telephone audio and the county radio onto the same track. In the future described by the call, Nora was still in the basement while responders transmitted the incident around her. Nora stared at the clock above the dispatch map. It read 10:17 a.m., Thursday, October 16th. The school bus in the call would not leave until Friday morning. The voice had come from 23 hours, 58 minutes, and 12 seconds in the future. The private conversations in this reconstruction come from Nora's signed 2009 statement, Leah's written corrections to that statement, and the surviving dispatch logs. Where a thought cannot be documented, I will identify it as an inference. That was not Nora's first early call. It was the third. Mercy Bell sat where the flat wheat country began to break into shallow limestone ravines. 2 highways crossed 3 miles north of town. The railroad had stopped taking passengers before Nora was born, but freight trains still passed at night, shaking the windows of the courthouse and making the fluorescent lights tremble in their housings. The emergency center occupied 2 rooms in the courthouse basement. One room held the radio consoles, the county map, and a dented refrigerator that clicked on every 11 minutes. The other held the tape recorders and an aging telephone switch installed when Bellwether County still existed. Bellwether County had been dissolved in 1962 after its population fell below the state minimum. Its western half became part of Merrow County. Its eastern half was split between 2 neighbors. The name disappeared from road signs, tax forms, and school districts. It remained only on old survey markers and on the brass plates of telephone equipment nobody had bothered to replace. Nora had worked nights in that basement for 9 years. She knew which volunteer fire chief slept beside his pager and which one needed 3 calls. She could identify Deputy Sam Ortega by the way he pressed his radio key before speaking. She knew that a silence after the words "my husband" meant something different from a silence after the words, "my son." People trusted her because she sounded calm when they could not. Calm was a skill Nora had built after her husband Ben died on an icy county road 4 winters earlier. Ben had called their house from a gas station before starting home. Nora had told him the plows were out and the road would be fine. 40 minutes later, his pickup crossed the center line near a frozen culvert. For years, Nora kept the weather report from that night folded inside her wallet. It said the temperature had been 34 degrees when she spoke to him. It did not say what the temperature had been at the bridge. After his death, Nora began treating uncertainty like a personal failure. She checked locks twice. She called Leah's friends' parents. She kept jumper cables, blankets, flares, water, and 2 flashlights in the trunk. If danger could be named, measured, or placed on a map, Nora believed it could be controlled. That belief made her an excellent dispatcher. It also made it almost impossible for Leah to breathe. On Wednesday evening, 15 hours before the 3rd call, they argued beside Nora's car.
It is a speech tournament, Mom. We drive there, I read a piece, we drive home. Other people do this every weekend without a disaster plan.
The Weather Service says the storm may stall south of us.
May, that word means May.
And Bellwether Cut floods first.
Then the driver takes another road. You are not the only person who knows roads.
Nora told her they would discuss it in the morning. Leah said that meant no and walked away before Nora could deny it. 15 hours later, a future version of Nora called Console 3 and said the bus was in the water. The first early call arrived 2 nights earlier at 2:14 a.m. on Tuesday. A man shouted that the metal awning over Dorsey Feed had fallen onto the sidewalk. He said one person was trapped. Nora asked for the caller's name. He said Calvin Reed, then complained that she already knew him. Nora did know Calvin. He delivered the Wichita paper before dawn. But when Nora looked through the narrow basement window, Calvin's station wagon was passing the courthouse exactly where it should have been. She could see the bundled newspapers stacked behind his seat. On the line, Calvin was crying.
"It is Earl Dorsey. The whole front came down. I told him not to move. Nora, why are you asking me this again? You called Sam already."
Calvin, what day is it?
"Wednesday, October 15th.
The calendar beside Nora said Tuesday, October 14th. The call ended with the same 3 ascending notes later heard on the school bus tape. Nora replayed it twice. Then she called Sam Ortega and asked him to meet her at Dorsey Feed.
Is there an alarm?
Not yet.
That is not usually how alarms work.
Humor me.
They found the awning intact, but orange rust streaked the bolts along its western edge. One bracket had pulled a 1/4 inch away from the brick. Sam woke Earl Dorsey, who was less grateful than a man being warned about a possible collapse might have been. By sunrise, yellow tape blocked the sidewalk. Earl promised to call a contractor. Nora returned to the basement, convinced she had prevented something terrible. At 2:12 the next morning, 23 hours, 58 minutes, and 12 seconds after the early call arrived, the front wall of Dorsey Feed shifted. The barricade kept Earl off the sidewalk. It also forced him to use the loading entrance. When the wall moved, a storage rack inside the building leaned, and 600 pounds of bagged seed fell across the rear aisle. Earl's wrist broke under the rack. Calvin Reed found him while delivering the paper. The awning never struck the sidewalk. The words on Nora's tape no longer described what happened, but the rusted anchors had still failed. The danger had simply moved from the front of the building to the back. Calvin did not remember making the call Nora had recorded. When she played it for him, the color left his face.
That sounds like me, but I did not say it.
You called from tomorrow.
Then tomorrow changed.
Nora wrote those 3 words in the incident log and underlined them twice. Then tomorrow changed. What she did not write was the question that followed her through the rest of the shift. If tomorrow could change, why had someone still been hurt? The second call arrived 25 hours and 33 minutes after the first, at 3:47 a.m. on Wednesday. A woman reported a fuel tanker and a pickup truck blocking County Road 6 at Miller Crossing. She smelled gasoline. The tanker driver was not moving. In the background, a car horn sounded in a steady, unbroken note. Nora checked the clock. 3:47 a.m., Wednesday. The caller said it was Thursday. This time, Nora asked questions designed to test the call instead of the caller. What was painted on the tanker? Which direction was the pickup facing? What song was playing on the radio? The woman answered each question, then became angry.
Why are you doing this? You know the tanker. It comes through every Thursday before 4. You told me units were coming.
Nora did know the tanker. A company in Garden City delivered heating fuel to farms south of Mercy Bell. Its route crossed Miller Crossing every Thursday at approximately 3:45. After the line ended, Nora called the company. The overnight manager confirmed the trip, but refused to cancel it because of what he called an unexplained recording. Sam agreed to park at the crossing. If the truck appeared unsafe, he would stop it. Rain began shortly before 3 on Thursday morning. Sam positioned his cruiser at County Road 6. Nora listened through the radio as the tanker approached.
I have him. Lights are on. Speed looks normal.
Stop him before the crossing.
On what course?
Tell him there is debris in the road.
Sam hesitated. Then he activated his lights. The driver stopped, irritated but cooperative. Sam directed him east along Mill Street, away from the crossing described on the tape. For 11 minutes, nothing happened. Nora let herself believe the pattern was broken. At 3:45, the tanker reached the hill above the old grain elevator. Its brake pedal went to the floor. The driver avoided a line of houses by steering into a utility pole. The impact split a transformer and cut power to half the town. The tanker remained sealed. The driver suffered a fractured shoulder. No pickup truck was involved. When mechanics inspected the vehicle, they found a pinhole leak in a rear brake line. It had been leaking before Sam changed the route. Nora had moved the truck. She had not found the reason it was going to crash. The first call had shown a falling awning, but the real problem was a failing wall. The second had shown a collision at Miller Crossing, but the real problem was a failing brake line. Nora drew 2 columns on a legal pad. She labeled the first, what the call shows. She labeled the second, what makes it happen. Under the second heading, she wrote one word in capital letters, unknown. Mercy Bell had 3 dispatch consoles. 1 and 2 handled the modern county lines. Console 3 was older, wider, and finished in the green paint used on office equipment in the 1960s. Its indicator lamps had been replaced so many times that no 2 were the same color. Both early calls entered through Console 3. The county's telephone contractor, Eli Mercer, arrived after the tanker crash carrying a canvas tool bag and a thermos covered in faded Union stickers. Eli had maintained rural exchanges for 37 years. He distrusted any explanation that used the word impossible before someone had checked the wiring.
The machines do strange things for ordinary reasons. Water, heat, mice, people who think red and green are close enough.
He removed the back panel from console 3 and found a blue copper pair connected to a terminal marked BRTC 7B. BRTC stood for Bellwether Rural Telephone Cooperative. The cooperative had closed in 1971. Most of its cables had been abandoned underground when the county adopted a newer switching system. Eli followed the blue pair into the recorder room, through a ceramic lightning block, and up into a conduit that left the courthouse toward the south.
Well, this should be dead.
It rang twice.
Dead lines ring. Voltage crosses. A wet splice borrows current from a neighbor.
Do dead lines know what day it is?
Eli did not answer. He connected a test handset. At first, there was only static. Then the 3 notes sounded, soft but perfectly spaced. Eli pulled the handset away from his ear.
That is not dial tone.
What is it?
3 frequencies. 440, 554, 659, close enough. Somebody built that.
The notes corresponded roughly to A, C sharp, and E. An A major chord separated across the telephone band. Eli searched his old route books. Trunk 7B had once connected the courthouse to a manual junction box at Bellwether Cut, then continued south to farms that no longer existed. The junction sat beside a limestone culvert under Old Route 9. The speech team's bus was scheduled to take Old Route 9 on Friday if the main highway flooded. Nora had not yet received the 3rd call. At that moment, Bellwether Cut was simply an old name beside a deadline. Eli planned to open the junction after lunch. The 3rd call arrived first. Thursday morning brought rain in long, hard bands. Water ran down the courthouse steps and gathered against the basement door. Lightning struck north of town shortly after 10, knocking out the modern weather receiver. Console 3 remained lit. At 10:16 a.m., its white indicator began to pulse. Nora answered. She heard her own future voice reporting that school bus 17 was off Bellwether Cut. She heard the words "children in the water." She heard Leah's name. The future Nora also said something the tape machine barely captured.
I tried to keep her home. That is how she ended up on the East Road. Do not just move them again. Find the reason.
Then came the instruction about Eli and the blue pair. Do not let him cut it until you hear the tone. When the call ended, Nora did not immediately contact Sam. She locked the recording room and replayed the tape through headphones. Behind the future Nora's voice were 3 distinct sounds: the bus horn, rushing water, and a metallic bell that struck twice every few seconds. Mercy Bell had no warning bell at Bellwether Cut. The nearest railroad crossing was 6 miles away. Nora played the section again and heard a man's voice in the distance.
Keep them above the intake. The pipe is pulling.
Not a bridge, Nora thought. A culvert. She pulled the highway maintenance binder and found a 1958 survey of Old Route 9. The road crossed Bellwether Wash on 2 corrugated steel pipes, each 6 feet in diameter. A maintenance note from 1989 said the southern pipe had begun to separate at the center seam. A handwritten recommendation called for replacement within 5 years. There was no replacement record. Nora called the county road supervisor at home. He told her the current map showed a concrete box culvert at the site. Nora read him the old survey number. He said the number belonged to a structure removed decades ago.
Have you seen the new concrete?
I have seen the inventory.
That is not what I asked.
The supervisor promised to send someone after sunrise if the rain continued. Nora looked at the dispatch map. According to the map, Old Route 9 crossed a concrete structure. According to the old survey, it crossed 2 steel pipes. According to a call from tomorrow, one of those pipes would pull children into floodwater. She called Leah.
Mom, I am in class.
You cannot go tomorrow.
We already did this.
The bus is not safe.
You do not know that.
I know enough.
No, you are scared enough. That is different.
Leah hung up. Nora reached for the phone again, intending to call the school principal, the bus driver, and every parent on the team roster. Then she looked at the legal pad beside console 3. What the call shows. What makes it happen? She set the receiver down. At 4 that afternoon, Nora met Leah at a diner across from the school. Rain traced crooked lines down the windows. Students in maroon jackets carried garment bags and boxes of debate notes toward the gym. Nora placed a cassette player on the table.
Is this another weather report?
Oh, it is me.
She played the third call. Leah listened without interrupting. When her name came through the speaker, she folded her arms tighter across her chest. At the end, she asked whether Nora had made the recording to frighten her. Nora expected anger. The question hurt more.
I would never do that.
You tell me something terrible might happen every time I leave.
Because terrible things happen.
They happen when I stay home too.
Nora told her about Dorsey Feed and the tanker. She explained how both warnings had been accurate before she acted and wrong afterward. Leah understood the pattern before Nora finished.
You changed where they went. You did not change what was broken.
It was the same conclusion Nora had written in the basement, but hearing it from Leah made its second meaning unavoidable. Since Ben's death, Nora had tried to change where Leah went, who drove her, when she returned, which roads she took. She had never found a way to repair the thing that was actually broken. Nora's belief that loving someone meant preventing every possible loss.
I want you off that bus.
Because the road is unsafe, or because you cannot stand not knowing.
Nora looked through the window at the buses, lined beside the gym.
Both.
Then fix the part you can prove. If the road is bad, close the road for everyone. Do not just lock me in my room.
They agreed Leah would board only after Nora or Sam confirmed the posted departure route. Nora agreed not to invent a new reason if that route proved safe. It was the first safety plan they had made together rather than one Nora imposed. At 7:42, Eli Mercer entered the diner soaked to the shoulders. He carried a corroded brass tag stamped BRTC 7B.
The courthouse line is not the only end of that pair.
He had checked an old cable map. The blue pair looped through 3 abandoned farm junctions before reaching Bellwether Cut. Rainwater could energize the cable, but it could not explain tomorrow's voices. Eli did not pretend otherwise. He said the junction box at the culvert was their best chance of finding both the electrical fault and the road's actual condition. The county road supervisor still had not sent a crew. Nora called Sam. This time, she did not ask him to block a route, because a tape predicted a crash. She gave him the survey number, the missing replacement record, the rainfall total, and the voice mentioning an intake pipe.
That is enough cause for a road inspection.
I thought you might say that.
Old Route 9 left Mercy Bell between the grain elevator and a row of cottonwoods. Beyond the city limit, the pavement narrowed and the shoulders disappeared. Rain filled the wheel ruts and turned the limestone ditches the color of coffee. Sam drove the patrol car. Eli sat beside him with his tool bag. Nora followed in her station wagon because the dispatch center could spare her for 40 minutes, no more. Another operator monitored the radios. Bellwether Cut lay 12 miles south of town, where the road descended between two low rock walls. The original county line marker still stood on the western bank, its lettering worn almost smooth. At first, the crossing looked ordinary. Water flowed below the road through a concrete opening exactly as the modern inventory described. Then Eli climbed down the bank and struck the concrete facing with the handle of a screwdriver. The surface broke away in a thin shell. Behind it was corrugated steel. Someone had covered the old pipes with a concrete facade instead of replacing them. Sam photographed the break. Nora found the maintenance bell from the future recording, a loose steel reflector mounted above the culvert. Wind pushed it against its post twice every few seconds. Clang, clang, the same rhythm heard behind her future voice. Eli located the telephone junction on the upstream side. It was a waist-high iron cabinet bolted into limestone. A blue-insulated pair entered from the north and disappeared into a conduit running beneath the road.
Here is your trunk 7B.
He opened the cabinet. Water poured from the bottom hinge. Inside, green corrosion joined terminals that should have been separate. The blue pair vibrated faintly against its clips. Nora heard the three-note tone before Eli connected his handset. It did not come from the speaker. It came through the metal cabinet, too low to be loud, but strong enough to feel under her fingertips. Eli reached for his cutters.
Wait.
The future call had warned her not to let him cut the blue pair until they heard the tone. They had heard it. She still did not know whether cutting the line would prevent the call, cause the crash, or erase the only warning they possessed. Then Sam shouted from the road. A crack had opened across the southbound lane. It was less than a quarter-inch wide, but muddy water breathed through it each time a truck passed. The roadway above the southern pipe was hollow. Sam radioed an immediate closure request. The county supervisor answered that his nearest barricade truck was 40 minutes away. The speech team's bus was scheduled to leave in less than 16 hours. Sam parked his cruiser sideways across the north approach until the barricade truck arrived. County maintenance placed temporary barriers on both sides of the cut. The courthouse tried to fax the closure notice to the school, but the storm had disabled the line before the confirmation page returned. At 9:32 Friday morning, Nora was back at the courthouse with Eli. Sam reported by radio that overnight runoff had moved the north approach barrier into the ditch. The south approach remained blocked, but the north side was open. A maintenance crew was due at 10. Nobody was yet guarding the gap. 10 minutes later, the relief operator called Nora on the radio.
School says the team left early. Driver wants to beat the heavy band coming east.
Which route?
Main highway unless the railroad underpass is flooded.
At 8:50, Sam had confirmed to the school that the posted departure route was the safe main highway. Leah boarded on that confirmation. After the bus left, the railroad underpass took 18 inches of water. The driver consulted the paper approved route binder and requested the listed alternate. The approved alternate was Old Route 9. The binder showed a concrete culvert at Bellwether Cut. The school had never received the failed fax announcing Sam's closure. Nora called the bus on the county mutual aid frequency. Static answered. The limestone walls blocked the signal south of town. She left the courthouse and accelerated toward the bus. The future call placed the bus in the water at 10:14 Friday morning. Nora checked her watch. They had a little more than 30 minutes and the bus was already moving. That was enough cause to act. She forced herself to separate urgency from panic. Fear wanted her to drag Leah off the bus and ignore everyone else. Evidence required her to stop the vehicle, show the driver the closure, and protect every child on board. Near mile 2, Nora saw the yellow school bus ahead, moving toward the cut with its hazard lights flashing in the rain. At its current speed, it would reach the hollow section close to 10:14. She sounded her horn and flashed her headlights. The driver continued. There was no safe shoulder, and stopping on the descent would leave the bus exposed to traffic behind it. Nora passed only when the road widened beside an abandoned grain depot. She pulled in front of the bus and reduced speed, guiding it into the depot's broad gravel turnaround. For 1 second, she considered blocking the road with her car. Then she remembered the tanker. Moving a vehicle without addressing its mechanical problem had only changed the crash site. She drove into the turnaround, stepped out in the rain, and showed the driver Sam's radioed closure order and the photographs of the cracked pavement. The driver turned the bus around. Leah sat in the 4th row. Their eyes met through rain-streaked glass. Nora did not order her off. She raised one hand. Leah raised hers. The bus headed back toward town. The children were safe. At 10:02, after the bus had turned back, the scheduled maintenance crew reported that its barricade truck was axle deep on a separate gravel service track west of Bellwether Cut. The service track did not intersect Old Route 9, and the crew could not reach either approach on foot before 10:14. The north approach remained open. The blue pair remained silent. By 10:05 Friday morning, the bus was back at the school and every student had been accounted for. The original cassette did not change. It still contained children shouting, rushing water, and Nora's report that the bus was in the creek. Calvin's tape and the tanker tape had also survived the futures they helped prevent. Magnetic oxide was a physical object in the present. Whatever branch of tomorrow had produced each call, its warning remained after that tomorrow no longer occurred. Nora understood what the calls had offered her. Not certainty, not control. A description of consequences without an explanation of causes. That was less useful than prophecy and more useful than fear. While Nora intercepted the bus, Eli placed the corroded BRTC tag beside console 3 and asked over the radio whether she still wanted the line disconnected.
If I cut it, maybe this ends.
Maybe it ends anyway.
You are the one who heard tomorrow.
I heard one version of it.
Nora told him to wait until 10:14. If the interval was exact, one final connection remained between the time of the recording and the event that no longer happened. On Friday, they would be standing at the future end of the line. At 10:08 Friday morning, Nora and Leah sat together in the dispatch center. The speech tournament had been postponed. The storm moved east, leaving the streets wet and almost empty. Leah studied the incident logs while Nora monitored the radios.
Calvin's tomorrow changed, right?
Oh, the event changed. The tape did not.
And your tape did not change.
I know.
So the warning stays even when the future does not.
Nora had been asking the same question. A recording could preserve information from a future that no longer happened. That did not prove a single fixed destiny. It meant the past could keep evidence from one abandoned possibility. At 10:10, Sam brought coffee and stood by the recorder room door. Nobody made jokes. Nora placed a fresh cassette in Console 3's logger. She gave Leah a second blank cassette and a portable recorder, then asked her to record the room from the courthouse stairs, where the old Bellwether cable did not run.
If anything changes, tell us.
You think the room matters.
I think I am done assuming it does not.
At 10:13, the indicator on Console 3 glowed white. No bell rang. The three-note tone emerged through the speaker, quiet at first, then strong enough to make the paper map above the console vibrate. For several seconds, the dispatch room heard itself delayed by less than a breath. The refrigerator clicked, then clicked again through the speaker. Sam cleared his throat, followed by an echo of the same sound. The delay grew. 1 second. 10. A minute. The clock reached 10:14. At that same moment, the southbound lane at Bellwether Cut collapsed into the culvert. Mud and asphalt filled the southern pipe. Water broke through the weakened concrete facade with enough force to tear the reflector bell from its post. A county tow truck collected the maintenance crew and reached the south approach 4 minutes later. By then, the road itself had become the barrier. Had the bus continued toward the cut, its front axle would have crossed the hollow section at almost exactly that moment. The physical cause was ordinary. A steel pipe left in service for almost 40 years, a false concrete face, missing maintenance records, and 2 days of rain. The warning was not ordinary. The indicator began to pulse. Console 3 was no longer waiting for a call from tomorrow. It had opened the other half of the same connection, an outgoing path toward Thursday morning. But there was no emergency left to report. Nora did not lift the receiver. For 4 years, she had wanted one final conversation with Ben. She had imagined warning him about the ice, telling him to wait at the gas station, changing his route before the bridge. Now a line to yesterday was open within reach. She could answer and try to replace the warning her past self had already heard. She could preserve the equipment, search for a longer interval, and spend the rest of her life asking each tomorrow to decide the next road, the next storm, and the next risk. Every answer would become a map, and every map would start to feel like a promise. Leah stood on the stairs holding the portable recorder. She did not tell her mother what to do. That mattered. Nora looked at her daughter, then at Eli.
I cut the blue pear.
Eli placed the cutters around the copper. The receiver began to ring. Nora closed her eyes.
I do not need another warning.
She stepped away from the console and nodded. Eli cut the wire. The 3-note chord stopped in the middle of its final note. Every indicator on Console 3 went dark. In the recorder room, the tape continued turning, capturing 11 seconds of perfect silence before ordinary line noise returned to Consoles 1 and 2. The original calls remained on their cassettes. Nora's handwritten notes remained. Nobody in the room ever learned who was trying to call. The state replaced both pipes at Bellwether Cut the following spring. Investigators found that the concrete facade had been added by a private contractor in 1974. The work order described it as cosmetic stabilization. Later inventories misread the concrete face as evidence of a complete replacement. Dorsey Feed rebuilt its front wall. Earl Dorsey's wrist healed badly, and he complained about it whenever rain was forecast. The fuel company replaced brake lines on every tanker in its regional fleet. The driver returned to work after 6 weeks. Mercy Bell replaced Console 3 in 1998. Eli asked to keep the BRTC terminal block, but the county listed it as evidence and stored it with the tapes. Nora remained a dispatcher for another 12 years. Former co-workers described a change in how she handled uncertain calls. She still asked precise questions, but she stopped promising frightened people that everything would be fine. Instead, she told them what was known, what was not known, and what the next useful action would be. Leah attended the rescheduled speech tournament 2 weeks later. Nora did not follow the bus. She did check the weather twice. Some habits take longer to repair than roads. The official investigation concluded that Console 3 had received 3 false or misrouted calls during an electrical storm. It did not address the timestamps, the matching voices, or the information recorded before anyone could have known it. The report said the tapes were unreliable because their recording equipment was obsolete. That conclusion explains distortion. It does not explain information. Calvin's call named Earl before the wall failed. The tanker caller identified a route before the truck was dispatched. Nora's call captured the double strike of the loose reflector bell and the warning about water pulling at an intake pipe before anyone inspected the hidden steel culvert. The details existed on tape before the people in Mercy Bell could have known them. Unless the surviving witnesses coordinated an elaborate fraud, the calls were either evidence of a connection across time or evidence of something equally difficult to name. Nora never publicly chose between those possibilities. In a 2009 retirement interview, a local reporter asked about the strangest call she had ever received. Nora said the strangest call was not one that came from the future. It was one that made her understand the present. The reporter treated the answer as a joke. Nora did not correct him. My name is Mara Vance. I found the Mercy Bell tapes in March of 2026 while digitizing records from the former Merrill County Emergency Center. They were packed in a gray evidence box with no accession number. The box contained 5 cassettes, Nora's legal pad, her signed 2009 statement, Leah's written corrections to that statement, the 1958 culvert survey, photographs of the Bellwether Junction, and a 6-inch section of blue telephone wire. 3 cassettes held the early calls. A 4th was the console logger from the final 10-14 experiment. The 5th was Leah's portable recording of the dispatch room when Eli cut the line. Audio examination found no splice in the 3rd tape. The oxide, leader, and recorder noise are consistent with other Mercy Bell recordings from 1997. Nora's voice matches her known radio traffic from the same period. The blue wire carries no identifying marks beyond its color. The brass terminal block is missing. I contacted Nora Vale, now an attorney in Colorado. She declined an interview but confirmed one detail. When Eli cut the line, she recorded from the courthouse stairs. For 11 seconds after the tone stopped, the portable recorder captured a second signal beneath the silence. Not a voice, a sequence of numbers. She wrote them on the cardboard cassette sleeve, but the sleeve was not in the evidence box. 3 weeks after I contacted her, an envelope arrived at my office with no return address. Inside was a photocopy of that sleeve. The numbers were not a date or a telephone number. They were geographic coordinates. The coordinates point to an abandoned motel outside North Platte, Nebraska. County records say the motel has 23 rooms. The original floor plan has 24. Room 24 does not appear on any renovation record, tax assessment, or fire inspection made after 1986. But for 11 years, guests continued to receive keys marked 24. That is the next unlisted county file. Until then, remember the lesson Nora Vale learned beneath the courthouse in Mercy Bell. A warning can tell you where fear is looking. It cannot tell you what is broken. This story is an original work of fiction. Names, places, agencies, and events were created for this production.